All right. There's some things I could get into, but first I want to find out what anybody else would like to talk about. Mike.
So I know the old saying goes, and I always get it
Whoops, are
wrong.
you muted?
No, I don't think so. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Okay, what about now?
We've got blue light here.
Ah,
Are we muted? Well, wait a second.
okay. Got me.
Okay, we were.
Oh, okay.
I must have.
You can hear me?
Now you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, I don't know. Anyway, so I know the old saying is that Buddhism is the dad and Taoism is the mom of Zen. And I know for us on the precepts, it goes back to, the Buddha's early followers and putting up some guardrails for that. So I don't know much at all about Taoism. So is there any sort of vow precept tradition in Taoism?
I don't know.
Ah,
I'd be hesitant to even attempt an answer.
oh, okay.
Other than to say that in keeping with the nature of Taoism, having studied some of the principal texts, I would be surprised if there wasn't some attention spent on that subject matter in terms of virtuous action. But what shape that might take, I'm not sure. Yeah. But that would be good for somebody to research and get back to us. I'd love to learn about that myself. All right, we've got a volunteer. Glenn.
Just there's a section in the introduction, it's on page 4, and he's talking about telling a story of Sumeda. And Sumeda, it's the second full paragraph.
Yeah.
Sumeda thought, suppose a man, after falling into a heap of filth, hears about a distant pond covered with lotuses of 5 colors. That man ought to search for that pond. If he does not, that's not the pond's fault. In the same way, there's a lake, the great deathless nirvana, in which to wash off the defilements of my harmful karma. If I do not seek it, that will not be the lake's fault. I just love that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Just, yeah. So refreshing hearing that analogy, that metaphor applied in that way, right? The boundless ocean, right, and internet, but the lake is just doing what the lake does, and if you don't, tap into it, not the lake's fault. You can take advantage of it.
Yeah. Let alone if you're actively poisoning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this book is just full of beautiful imagery like that.
Gems, yeah. I agree. Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I was thinking about what vow means to me. We started with the definition of it, what it means to me, and the word that came to mind was intention.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, well, that's also in when we do our closing chant after the Dharma talk, it mentions the word intention. So, do you see any difference between intention and the earlier definitions of vow that we talked about, or are they pretty much the same?
Pretty much the same, I guess. If we really put on our dualistic hats, we could probably find some areas we could do a little differentiating. But I agree. I think for the most part, they're really pointing to the same thing.
I think I like the word intention because I feel like less pressure. Like if my intention is good and I'm doing my best, then it's so
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's important, I guess, looking at contemporary notions of language, and it's important if we're going to raise questions like that we look at, well, how is the language actually used, rather than what's some lofty meaning, like create some metaphysical realm, which contemporary philosophy's kind of caught up with Buddhism, saying there is nothing up there. That these words are instantiations of. It's how the hell are you using the language? So questions like that, I guess when I begin to process it, it seems like vow, and maybe that's why that's the term that when we're talking about specific things, really specific, vow seems to be more appropriate because it does have that kind of heavier implication. Whereas the parental comments many of us heard about intentions, the road to heaven's paved with. Maybe not. It wasn't probably the road to heaven. No, it was a different road. And you could certainly say that about good vows too, but it wouldn't seem to fit so nicely. That's just one thing, and again, that's just based on usage, how it gets used. I don't know what Buddha thought. I don't really care. Since we'll never know anyway. I'm sure we could write volumes of books on it.
Wasn't it hundreds and hundreds of years before anyone started writing stuff down?
Oh,
Like the oral tradition from Buddha to his disciples, when he died, they were like, what the hell?
right.
Okay, we need to figure something out. And then hundreds of years later, someone said, you know what, we should probably jot some of this down before. But then during that whole time, how much of it was, a game of telephone as it gets passed on and transcribed and misheard and retold, and and the fact that we'll never know is kind of cool in a way.
It's very cool. Yeah. It's the truth behind that great Monty Python skit from the life of Brian on the Sermon on the Mount. They're passing back in just that fashion, the telephone line. What's he saying? Blessed are the cheesemaker. And they immediately start practicing hermeneutics on it, interpreting. Well, I don't think he really means cheesemakers, probably more broadly dairy products. Yeah, it's great. And maybe that's what he was actually saying. And then you were reporting it as peacemakers. They go, oh. But yeah, I mean, and parallel to that, the stories that get created to try to overcome that.
Yeah.
So instead of the telephone line through generations, all of a sudden, the Buddha's own nephew, Ananda, he was gifted with phonographic memory, not photographic, but everything he heard, it was registered.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's all true.
Yeah.
If his stamp is on it.
Us, I have heard.
And that's why there's so many lists, right? So that people could remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you read these original sutras, not only are they lists, but the lists get repeated. It's like they'll say something slightly different, and then they'll repeat the whole list again. And of course, contemporary Theravadins, part of their practice is memorizing these sutras. So they are memorizing these lists over and over and over again. So that's still actively practiced. Within Zen, and this is a practice that Busholan had us do, copying sutras, where he had us copying Song of Zazen. All these songs, almost said Song of Dharma nature. No, that's not. So there's great value to writing them down.
Dean, what did you mean by lists?
Oh, well, I mean, the more manageable ones would be like the Eightfold Path or the Six Paramitas, and even the precepts. So there are 16 precepts in our ordination ceremonies. The Vinaya, which goes back to Theravada days practice, was far more extensive. They might have 500 some precepts within the Vinaya code because it covered every aspect of communal life, because it was about monks living together. And the intent of it was to kind of, you might almost say, set up a uniform code of administering conflicts. And how do you prevent that? So you don't have warring monks on your hands. So the list can get pretty long. I mean, and if you study Abhidharma, mental factors, you might have a list of 56 of them. So we grumble about our lists, and believe me, compared to the Theravadins, it's a piece of cake. I never set forth trying to memorize any list, but if you study the text, it just kind of happens organically. So don't think that because I know a number of lists, that's because I really put a lot of effort into that. Right? I didn't put any effort into it. Figured if it was meant to be memorized, great. If not, I know where I can find them. So, and that's before smartphones. Now,
Yeah, but with the smartphones, though, you have to be careful, because if you do a search and you don't have your settings fixed, the first couple of returns are going to be AI summaries.
yeah,
And
for sure.
Just not correct,
Yeah.
like riddled with errors, and just like, oh, I can't trust this. One thing that we grew to trust, we can no longer trust, and it's have to dig a little deeper, go directly to the source to
Very true.
make sure that. And it was interesting. This guy came up in one of the videos on one of the feeds, and he was, I think he was trying to talk to a lay audience about Buddhism. And when the video started, it seemed like he was doing a really good job summarizing the Four Noble Truths, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
But once he did that, once he got through, the Four Noble Truths and the pathway to ease suffering is the Eightfold Path, then he switched, and almost like a light switched, and it started to be about self-help and how you can use the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path as a way of improving your life and gaining an edge.
Yeah.
And it was just like the weirdest thing, like how you can take something so simple and so elegant and then misapply it for like completely ignoring compassion and loving kindness and the vows of liberation for all beings, and it just focusing on, I can be a better person and I can manage my stress. And I just thought it was really weird, a little sad too.
Yeah. Because Buddhism became such a kind of buzz type practice, they were kind of fleecing it for any benefit they could get, but they had their ultimate aim, and they just tailored it to that. Just like we've talked about before and here about using mindfulness to increase productivity in an industrial or office setting, because it could be used for that. It could have myriad other benefits too, making the employees hate their jobs a little less. But the cynic in me, and having come out of that world, knows that, that's really not what we're interested in. It's nice, makes us feel warm and fuzzy. It's really, from their standpoint, about increasing productivity. At least if it's a publicly traded company. I don't lump small businesses into that. That's a different animal. But corporations, legally, they have to maximize shareholder value. And you can make a bit of a case that happy employees do that. So that's why they'll buy into that. But there are other things that increase it a lot faster, with the focus on quarterly results. That's got to tend to get principal attention.
As an example of poor internet skills, sitting in front of a computer, according to DaoWorld.org, there's something called, they cite something called the first true precept scripture of Taoism that says, quote, "Those who seek the Tao must take precepts as their teacher, uphold precepts as their life, or they are those who do not understand the nature of reality, do not follow the will of heaven, and do not follow the teachings of the saints." I've yet to triangulate and verify that, but as an example of poor internet searching.
Fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's becoming more and more of an issue as we become more and more reliant. I think it was Mark mentioned the Shambhala dictionary of Buddhism and Zen, and the use he's gotten out of it. Yeah, it's a valuable tool. Yeah, so they put a lot of research in that. And even having said that, I'll look at entries and say, well, I'm not entirely in agreement, because these are terms that just, they don't yield these hard and firm definitions. So I might read a definition, think, but that's ignoring an important piece to it. But yeah, they're limitations of space. They're not trying to create a Buddhist version of the OED. I mean, 20 volumes or however many. And, you've got to just kind of apply some common sense to limiting it.
Because our brains want resolution. So we want that definition so that we can move on to the next thing. And the last thing we want when we look something up is diffusion. And like, well, this word could mean this, but it could also mean, like, no, just tell me what it means. Yeah, so we have to remind ourselves that the brain is kind of dumb in those ways of settling or trying to settle for the easy win, the easy answer. It's like,
and the point I made this morning about definitions of terms and the fact that an important aspect of it's our own experience with it. And that this is one of the beauties of the OED and why it takes up so many volumes is they study the usage of that term, not just now, but historically. They'll pull passages from Shakespeare using it in such a fashion. So you can, if you look up a term and if you really want to go through a few pages like that, you can really get a much deeper understanding of how that term, all the trappings that are built into our use of it today. Because they're kind of these organic things that are changing constantly. So it's just like people wanting to trace their genealogy. It's kind of like tracing the genealogy of words. And it's fascinating. I could have been a linguist. I find it just fascinating. Really, really of deep interest. Because we are linguistic beings. So much of our being is kind of baked into our use of language. And yet until recent times, never really studied it. Really.
So I'll admit to all of you that my point of entry into Buddhism was self-help, and I don't know why I'm emotional right now. I mean, gosh, I really can't explain it, but I think we need to be careful, because I'm an example that, to study mindfulness and put it into practice did lead me down I was going to say down a path, but really it's not that. It's just circumstances in my life, like finding people, finding places, and then I want to say it's like the boiling water. Like it took a while, and yet it's very it's hard to categorize, But I will say early on, I I was exposed to some intense, readings, not necessarily in the Soto Zen tradition, but, not even specifically Buddhism, but I just want to say, like, I think it was just important for me to share that every circumstance, every person, it's like all the teachings we were just studying with YN and the Flower Garland Sutra. Yeah, everyone's different.
You never know what's going on.
We never know. You never know what's going on. And
If it's helpful to them, it's
yeah,
helpful to them.
and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if maybe an individual doesn't get, the deeper meaning, or it's not accurate, or or even, it's like, 'cause I see your point that you brought up, but the precepts are like, they are very accessible, and so are the Four Noble Truths, right? And so for someone to have that rather than not, I think it's okay. Everything gets a little bit snarly, if they're going to use it in such a way that this is, then it turns into false information. But what I'm saying is that this is the age we're living in right now. And look at us. We're just a tiny group of people here. And then how do we grow this without becoming evangelistic? These are just questions I think about a lot. So with that, I'll bow out.
I wanted to comment that, when I was a therapist, I used a lot of Buddhist concepts with my patients. So I taught them mindfulness, I taught them, we did Zazen, we did several other types of meditation. And then I also used John Kabat-Zinn's work on dealing with chronic pain. And and there's a whole branch of psychology, Buddhist psychology. So that's a whole way of doing therapy. It's a whole way of thinking about therapy. And it's a sticky wicket because, by using some of the things that we know from Buddhism, we can help to ease people's suffering. And for some of my patients, as at Whitehaven, it's their entry to further study and to real Buddhism, if you will.
Right.
So yeah, those distinctions about, is it being misused or is it helpful? That's kind of a tough one, and it really is, because so much of what we do has such great value to us and to others. So I think where things get a little dicey is that we are not practicing because we're trying to do that. That's just a side benefit to what we do.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful side benefits. Our families tell us that we've changed and so forth, but for the better, more patient or more helpful. But we're not doing it for that reason. But yeah, the benefits are great, no doubt. Yeah. So that was fortunate that you had that experience of being introduced to some of this stuff in that way. Yeah.
And now where we've gotten to, I'd like to bring it back to the importance of intention vow. How that is so important in terms of anchoring us. Because if we use any of these other practices, we'll settle on mindfulness, since that's probably been used as the example more often than any of the others, but it's not limited to that. You could practice patience in the same kind of way, the paramita, and use it in a way that maybe it has a very limited usage to serve somebody else's purpose. So this is where vow and intention, if our active life is kind of centered there, it's the way that we can assure that we utilize these things in helpful ways, like you're doing in your role as a therapist. So that's a perfect example of actually the on the expanded list of paramitas, skillful means. That's in the extra 4 that get added to the 6 we know. That's a perfection. Skillful means to be able to use the Buddha's teachings in skillful ways like that, applying them to particular life situations. That's what skillful means is all about. These aren't just lofty concepts. It's how do you apply them here and there. So looking at it that way, as skillful means, that's what this analysis is really geared toward, is what is it being used for as a skillful means toward? Is it to increase productivity by the workforce? Not healing a patient, which everybody would applaud and say that's exactly what skillful means is pointing to. That's how you help people. But if it's being used, and of course, the extreme example of mindfulness is, the best burglars are very mindful. You will be very good at your chosen career. But, that runs afoul of some other principles within Buddhism. So you can't take any individual piece and just build something on that alone. That's where Huayan comes in again. It's all interdependent. The pieces gain their value as part of this whole Dharma field. And as long as we understand that, we're on a solid ground, and we'll be able to skillfully practice skillful means, using them to help people. I mean, really help people, not help the shareholders, but at the expense of a number of other things. Because we understand that there's more involved than just mindfulness. So, and it's just, it's going to happen. I mean, like John Kabat-Zinn, he's focusing just on mindfulness because he's reducing stress. So don't complicate things by introducing a lot of stuff. Now you're going to increase. Keep it real simple. But what he was doing was great, skillful means. But if you create something like that, people are going to pay attention and say, oh, I can take that. It's so nice and simple. And we can incorporate this here. And maybe it's the Acme School of Burglary. To use my previous example and say, that's perfect. It's so applicable to what we do. How many of our members get caught because they're just reckless? A little more use of mindfulness, and they'd be able to burglar to their heart's content. And it's not, people that are using it. There are plenty of very, very great uses of it. It's just the nature of this capitalist system we're in that will find that and find capitalist uses. And the ultimate value there is increasing profits. Pure and simple. That's it. So that it's really a social dilemma we're confronted with, social, economic, political. It's not a spiritual dilemma. We just get hauled in, just like good, devout Christians who I have great respect for. You can take Christianity and turn it into the prosperity gospel, and all of a sudden, that's the ultimate measure of your value, not only to your employer, but to God. You're showing to God what a hardworking, good, upright person you are. And God is showering you with wealth. Great story. If you were a person of such wealth, why wouldn't you buy into it? So, yeah, that sounds about right. And of course, see, because we poke fun at other traditions, but Buddhism's prone to that. We call it karma. Because I was such a great bodhisattva in the previous lifetime, I'm rewarded with all these riches now. Yeah. So, I mean, it's all traditions are subject to this. But you always have counter scriptures or teachings that, in Christianity, prosperity gospel, and the passage in the New Testament about it being easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. So it just, I'm not saying that's necessarily true. Vimalakirti is a great example within Buddhism to counter that, but it means you need to take the whole of Scripture into account. And how do you deal with that? So we introduced holistic, wholesome, just a talk or two ago, and this is what we're talking about: is the whole of the Dharma. That's what's being brought into our practice. Which is kind of a beautiful thing, because that means when we vow to free all beings, that we do so with the understanding that we have so much support in that. The whole Dharma realm, which is just describing the nature of reality. So it's like, well, actually reality is there to be worked with. It's already preconditioned for just this. But if we just look at it as one objective, well then, then the whole thing gets kind of warped. But always have that in mind. We may be focusing on one, at this time, as a skillful means, we're focusing on one aspect, mindfulness. But that behind that is the whole Dharma realm. And that's the real strength, though. It's not mindfulness per se. It's mindfulness combined with right intention, right view, right speech, and so on and so forth. So, then you've got the whole package. And that's what we have. That's our Buddha nature. Buddha nature isn't just compartments. It's the whole thing. We only see it as compartments because of our limited view. So in the conventional world, which we also see the conventional world in a limited way. So to work effectively in it, we bring our individual tools, which are really vast tools. If we study the teachings on emptiness, we come to see their vastness. And the thing we're using these tools on is also equally vast. But we're limited beings, so we do what we can and with these limited tools and objects. And by doing so, because of interdependence, we're actually saving all beings in the process. So it's kind of nice. This like arrow points meeting and Zazenkai coming together so nicely. And it all begins with vow. Combine that with Zazen and Prajna. Wow. It's incredible. What this puny little existence, when we look at it from the cosmic perspective, what we're capable of. So it's very empowering in a world that tries to make us feel small, helpless. I don't think many segments of the population, those in positions of power, don't want folks out there working to free all beings. We're not exactly seen as allies to that cause. So we are definitely counterculture, 2026 style. This is the counterculture. And it's not limited to Zen, of course. But this is it.
Just basic kindness is considered punk rock now. It's like it's just so bizarre that we've come to this place as a society that just basic kindness is like, why? Why would you be kind? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, what's in it for you?
Crazy.
Yeah. I feel pretty good about the way we've set the stage for our entry into this book now. Like this has been wonderful.
Could we go back to this morning for just a minute, the southern and northern schools? It's a metaphor, of course, between the ways the two schools approach their studies, their practices.
Yeah.
But we still do that today. I mean, we say, okay, we're from we believe in Southern Enlightenment, and they, somebody else believes in gradual enlightenment. And yes, it's very two world kind of stuff, or dualistic. But nonetheless, we still practice it.
Yeah.
And we have this, by practicing it, it's just the knowledge or the realization that I believe that in the moment, when the timing of everything is right, I can suddenly awaken to something that I had not been awakened to previously.
Yeah.
And it's not this long, drawn out, gradually getting there.
Right.
So I believe in that. So I'm not seeing the issue between the two schools of thought
Perfect.
as being.
You shouldn't see an issue there. You've resolved it. Because that's the way that's my position.
Yeah, well, once you're there, you're there. And it didn't matter whether it was read. But but still, why is it taught?
Well, and that's why I felt it was important to point to its origins, just kind of like with language, see how it originated. We can learn a lot, even though a term might be getting used differently today. And its point of origin was to give one side supremacy over the other. And so many times when you get caught up in dualism, that's what it's about. It's about power plays.
Yeah.
Really. And that's pure and simple. That's what sudden gradual was about. And it's portrayed that way in the Platform Sutra, the sutra that's attributed to Huineng, which is why that sutra has to be studied with great care. And there's the preferred translation for that goes back, I think, to the 60s or 70s, Philip Yampolsky. And that's the one I've read one or two others. In fact, Red Pine has one, and I forget how much Red Pine dives into this, but Philip Yampolsky, it was a doctoral dissertation for him in either religious studies or maybe it was Buddhist studies. He really did a deep dive on what is this southern, northern, sudden, gradual thing all about. And his scholarship really turned up the power play that was going on. So I think it was the second Dharma generation after Huineng that this individual was trying to set up his lineage as the main one. So they were subtle, and they would just poke fun at the gradual. And of course, the story in the Platform Sutra, the most famous story about the poetry contest, the head monk would ultimately go off and do the gradual school thing. But Huineng was sudden. He got it. And even the story about his back in the village here, having that initial insight, just hearing a wandering monk reciting from the Diamond Sutra, just hearing one line from the Diamond Sutra, he had an insight. So the whole thing was kind of packaged to glorify the sudden and disparage gradual. And it was strictly about the power play.
And weren't the stakes super high back then? Because the Zen priests would be in favor or out of favor with the ruling class, and the emperor would pick a side and instruct his generals to go out and massacre the people on the other side. And so it was a matter of life and death for these schools of thought, that it wasn't just a disagreement about sudden versus gradual. It was like,
Dead versus alive.
I'm on the wrong side of this. I better
Yeah.
flee to Korea or somewhere where.
Have you ever heard of converts?
Yeah.
Sudden converts.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Why did I think of that?
It's so easy to convert to. Doesn't take years. Yeah, we appreciate that with our advanced marketing skills. Oh, gee, gradual was doomed from the get-go. How do you sell that? We want instant. If you can do it with coffee, you can certainly do it with enlightenment. So yeah, it's a good lesson to us that, you know, not to hold up, you know, our spiritual path is this, you know, lofty thing, because it's also traveling in the muddy waters, and it's easy to get pulled down there. That's our existence. So we have to be the lotus in muddy water, and that's vow. That's intention. That's the purifying agent. That's why it's so important. Because all these teachings from any tradition can be misused. It's the truth of the matter. Yeah, it's been pretty rich. It's great. We don't have to rush back, but if we're naturally at that point, then we can do that. Okay, well, let's go ahead, chant out the Bodhisattva vows again.
Okay.
May our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable, I vow to become it. All right, got a couple more periods of sitting, then we can all go home. And for Cavs fans, we can check and see how they did this afternoon. Which we don't want to know.